Hurry, it's almost Christmas!
We wish to interrupt this program in order to bring you this special bulletin.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
This is
the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show.
It's Christmas.
Calon FM on 105 FM. Your community, your music.
Whether on stage or in the studio or indeed at home, Nell Bryden's creative spirit never rests, not even in lockdown. Back in September of this year, Nell came on the stage and screen show here on Calon FM on the release day of her latest album, Nell Bryden The Collection. And now she has released what can possibly be described as the most timely Christmas song of the year. It's called We Need a Christmas. It is absolutely stunning. I'm going to play it in a moment, but first, Nell joins us direct from New York City. And Nell, the last time we spoke was back in September, and since then there seems to have been so much happening, including a new clientele in the White House. Are you pleased or just ecstatic?
Oh well, are you pleased or just ecstatic? Exactly. I think I'm tremendously relieved. I think it's one of those times where I felt like there was a man on CNN, Van Jones, who I watched afterwards, and it really choked me up because he was saying this is a day where you can, as a parent, turn to your child and say, you see good people and kindness does win out. You do. There are consequences to being naughty, to being somebody who's not nice and who hasn't cared for other people. And I feel like we're as a country and as a world right now, we really need a lot of healing, and we're going to hopefully go into a next phase now where we can sort of be much more unified. I really have no problem with people having different political views. Like I went and played for the troops in Iraq back in 2008 and 2009. I went twice, and I played for both the British troops and the American troops. And one of the things I remember learning from that time was never to really discuss politics or draw a line in the sand about somebody's character over their political views, because there were people that I ended up meeting and becoming friends with and getting quite close with that I never would have had I only gone on what side of the aisle we voted by. Yeah. But I think one of the problems that has happened in this country, in America now, is that it's so divided that people, and that was directly because of the man whose name shall remain unnamed. It's just kind of really coddling that divisiveness and making it part of the message that we have nothing in common and the other side is evil. And it's just surely not the case. And we got to move on from that. Otherwise, it's going to be civil war. We've just got to move on. So let's hope that the next phase is that. My goodness, I think everybody's ready for 2020 to be over, though. I mean, it's just... Yeah, it's been a doozy.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It would draw the line on the 2020 quite nicely. But people in this country, in the UK, we were kind of all on board with it at the same time, and it was like a big soap opera in the end, wasn't it? It took forever. Yeah. Oh, it took forever. I mean, on the day that it was announced, which was a Saturday, which was maybe 5 days after the Tuesday of the actual election. And Biden was announced, and I was in a building at my daughter's swimming class in Manhattan, and all of a sudden the streets just erupted in cheers and banging pots and people hanging out their windows and cars honking. It was as if the war was over, and they had just announced that the war was over. The whole city just erupted in this joyous sound, and everybody starts flooding out into the streets and being like, what's going on? Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And yeah. It was a magical moment, and I was really pleased to be in Manhattan at that moment because it was just a place where people were so joyous and ecstatic from it. Yeah. So I'll always remember that feeling that day of walking out on the street and hearing that. It was amazing sound. Yeah, but my son texted me and he went, put the news on quick. and and it was like, oh, thank God, because it's almost like on a tightrope where you don't know which way it's going to go. And even though in the end it was, it's fairly obvious which way it was going to go. But at the time you're thinking, oh, this could go either way. This is a worry.
Yeah, indeed. And it's still, it's unprecedented what's happening now, but we'll see. Hopefully we'll all be grown-ups again soon. So we'll see.
Perfect. Yeah, and of course, the last time I spoke to you as well, it was because your album, the singles collection, was coming. It was actually on release day. Was it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Was you? Did it get received well? Are you happy with?
It was
what's
it
going
was
on now?
incredibly well received. Yeah, that was in September, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
I have just drawn a blank on what month and where we are and what's going on right now. Like I just can't even figure out. I mean, I know that wasn't very long ago. We're heading up to Christmas, so it's got to be a couple months. But I have such a strange sense of time this year. Like I can't figure out if that was like 6 months ago or if it was just 2 weeks ago. It just feels like everything is completely shifted. So yes, the album release was a huge triumph. It was a lot of work and was very well received, and it was, it was a really nice a way to sort of move to the next chapter of my life, because it was 21 radio singles, and then I sort of opened the door for me to kind of write a new album. And since then, I've just been writing nonstop, like many sessions a day with different writers from Nashville to Copenhagen to LA. And every day we sort of have a different session on Zoom with different writers. And I've been working really hard on a new album. So it kind of cleared the palette for me it was like a little lemon slice, so I could kind of move on to the next menu of what I wanted to do. And I've felt like it's been really lovely to be able to go into the next chapter now as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because These Changes was written on Zoom, wasn't it? And of course, the Christmas song "We Need a Christmas," which is, God, it's stunning. I want to talk about that in a second, but I'm interested in the how you go about writing on Zoom. Is it an enjoyable process, or the challenges to it?
Well, Zoom, it's so weird. It's not a word or a method I'd ever heard of before the pandemic. And now everybody talks about Zoom, but I think there's something about Zoom that makes things much more intense and exhausting, so you can't go as long. Sometimes songwriting sessions before would be an all-day affair, and you'd kind of be in and out of the studio. You'd get up to make a cup of tea, and you'd hang out and kind of get to know each other, whereas this is much more intense, but it still really works, and there are real advantages. I'm a mother, and I live in New York City, and I can write with people from... Yesterday I was working with someone in Copenhagen, the other guy was in Zurich, and I was in New York, and we were all on Zoom at the same time. And we were all parents, and we didn't have to leave our house, and we wrote, another great song. And then tomorrow I'm going to be on with somebody from LA, and so I don't have to travel there either. It just makes it sort of more possible somehow to work with great people that are spread out around the world. So that's really lovely. And it's just the way, I think, because it had to be done, we just got on with it. Right. And now we're getting used to it. And
do you have like a studio set up in your house? And is that how that works?
Yeah,
you can't all get together, surely?
I do. Well, I live in Manhattan, so I live in a small, it's a lovely apartment and it's a lovely neighborhood, but it's not like I have room upon room upon room to turn into recording studios. So I have a recording studio set up, but it's right sort of in between the dining room and the living room. Yeah. So I have to choose my moments of when to do it, because, for the last 3 singles, These Changes, Amy, and then also the We Need a Christmas song, I was recording the vocals in my apartment, and a siren would go by outside in the street, because I have windows that are not soundproof, and so I'd have to pause it and then start again, and then the doorbell would ring, and somebody would be there, and I'd have to answer the door. So it's very much a sort of domesticated effort, but it's still rock and roll, so I'm making it work.
Oh, that's wonderful. No, I'm glad that happens to you as well.
I think this year has made us all more forgiving of each other's imperfections, right?
Yeah. But this Christmas song, as I say, it's absolutely, I mean, even from a first listen, which is quite rare really, isn't it, to get a song straight away. It's not necessarily a grower or anything, but when you're writing something like that for a Christmas song, is it the same way as you would normally write a normal song, or are there rules to a Christmas song you've got to kind of follow?
Oh, I think the biggest rule is to try not to be cheesy. I mean, it's so easy to go into that realm. I mean, holiday songs are rife with just cheese upon cheese upon cheese toast. It's just like it. I think I didn't really set out to write a Christmas song. I'd done one back in 2012, 2013. Actually, it was 2014, because it was right about the year that my daughter was born, and it was called May You Never Be Alone, and Susan Boyle ended up covering it. And I thought, well, that's me done with Christmas songs now. I don't have to do that now. And I really loved that song, and I was, not thinking I have to do this again. But there was something different about this year, which I keep sort of banging on about, but it's really true. There was something different about what we would want this year, and the same sort of like jolly, materialistic, let's go talk to Santa and get some toys kind of songs just didn't really apply to me. And to the way I was thinking, it felt more like there was an emotional need for the spirit of this season and sort of the unification, and so many of us are going to be not together this year, and there is a sense of having to kind of just muddle through in a way that, I think it would not have been quite so obvious in years past. So I wanted to get that across, and I was working with some writers from Nashville, and we just started writing. We thought, are we really going to do a Christmas song? Because, it's I think at that point it was like September, October or something. And we thought, well, do we really need to do this? And then it just came out. And so I thought, well, if a song comes out and it feels fully formed at the end of it, then just might as well put it to a couple people and see what they think. And so it was quite organic. It was one of those things that kind of kept itself going through its own legs. And I didn't really have to try terribly hard to push it forward, because it felt like it was maybe the right thing to say at the right time, and I think that's sort of a songwriter's job, is to try to do that.
But it seems very timely, the lyrics to it, and it's ideal for this year. I mean, it speaks for everybody for this year. But just the opening line itself, we need a Christmas more than ever, and it is, normally, of course, we as you're quite right. We want a Christmas. We like a Christmas. We've never, I'm 51 today. In my 51,
never needed a Christmas.
Never needed a Christmas, and there it is.
No.
And you've captured that brilliantly. That works for now, and that could work any year, really. But it is so timely for this year. Oh
well, I hope you're right. I mean, it's just a wonderful thing, because I just try to, I know I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do music anyway. And I'm just sort of my sort of reason, my raison d'etre is to just kind of wake up in the morning and try to write something that didn't exist that morning. And by the end of this, sort of magical that there would be no song existing that morning. And by the end of the day, there is something. And so when it then affects people too, that's the greatest feeling, because that's all any songwriter really wants.
Absolutely. And how does Christmas pan out in a Nell Bryden household? Is it are you traditionalists? Are you the same every year?
Well, I think it's impossible to be a traditionalist this year, isn't it? I mean, even the traditions, you have to sort of be flexible with them, and maybe that's the lesson too, is to just, traditions can be flexible too. But I have a 6-year-old. She just turned 6 this week, and so we always put up the tree after her birthday. That's the kind of getting into the Christmas season. And we live in Manhattan, so we have really nice tall ceilings here, so we thought we'd get a big tree this year. But they sell the trees at the corner here, and we went down to get a big 10-foot tree, and they were like, oh, that'll be $1,000. We were like, oh, what?
Really?
So I mean, it's just crazy prices. Yeah, I know. I guess everybody wants tradition this year, and they want expensive trees. So I thought, obviously, I'm not doing that. So we drove out to a Christmas tree farm to try to chop down our own tree, which we were not the only ones with that idea, because all the trees were already chopped down. So we stopped at a farm stand on the way back into the city and got a glorious tree for $100, and I was so pleased. And now we have this giant tree. But I'll tell you one thing, is about a couple weeks ago, I was walking down 67th Street, and I walked past a parked car, and I heard this tiny little meowing coming from the engine of the car. And I tried to find the owner, and I wrote a note on the windshield, and I waited finally until the owner came back 2 hours later, and he opened up the bonnet, and there was this little tiny ginger kitten in there, 6 weeks old, and it had crawled into his car 30 miles out of the city and clung on for dear life, and then was just in this parked car on 67th Street. And so I adopted him, and my daughter, when she first saw him, she was like, am I dreaming this? Is this really happening? So the long story short, though, is that we have this wonderful kitten this year as part of our menagerie now. But the only problem is that he has taken this Christmas tree as his new play frame, climbing frame, that he can just, get to the very top and then scatter right back down. And I've never had a cat before, and cats and Christmas trees, oh my God. So it's just disaster waiting to happen. It's an apartment full of comedy of errors all the time.
Wonderful. Well, we're similar actually. I say my birthday today, so we'll put our Christmas tree up. So
Happy birthday!
We normally do that. We normally it's kind of become a bit of a tradition, but this year a lot of people started putting their trees up in November. Because as you say, they want something to be grasp onto, really.
That must be global, because like I said, all the trees were sold out, all the trees were chopped down, none of the stores had Christmas lights in them, so I think everybody this year is getting a Christmas tree up.
Yeah.
And fine, why not? We're all home.
And the thing we're doing here, we've been allowed, it seems like we're all like children being allowed things, but we've been told we can have family round, two different families round to your house for 5 days. Which again makes no sense whatsoever to a lot of people, but it's kind of nice. Are you allowed to do anything like that, or will you just spend it with your closest?
Well, I really want to go see my cousins up in Boston, so we may do that. Everybody gets tested before. We were going to go for Thanksgiving, but we decided not to at the last minute. But the way that would work was everybody gets tested before we meet up, and then we all get tested when we're there, and then we get tested when we get back. It just seems like a lot of faff, but it's just sort of one of those things. Is it worth it to see family? And sometimes it just feels like it really is worth it, and you just have to make the decision. And other times it feels like, it's just another year and we can get through this, and let's just soldier it out until the vaccine's really widely available. I mean, you guys are ahead of us with the vaccine right now, so let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, Britain's never first with anything like this, so I think that's what people are a bit wary about.
Well,
you expect America to be
first with. Yeah, well, I mean, don't expect anything from America these days. Expect the worst.
But New York always seems to be quite a romantic place to be at Christmas. Is that a fair comment?
Okay, so New York has obviously had a hard year because of the pandemic. A lot of people moved out of the city. There were moving trucks, on our street every single day. And it was obviously a big epicenter of it. So it felt like it's been really hard hit. But the other day I was walking in Central Park, and I was on the phone with my cousin down in South Carolina. And I was walking through, and all of a sudden I was, beautiful, the wide vista in the middle of the park of the trees and the statues and, the scenes from like Home Alone, the movies, and Elf, like all the famous scenes. And I'm right there, and there's a guy playing saxophone, and he's playing These Are a Few of My Favorite Things. And this is New York. This is unbelievable. And my cousin goes, you can't write this. This is like a scene out of a movie. This is New York City. So there are still really romantic moments to New York, but it is, it's a strange year. I just keep saying that. Yeah,
I mean, for people who aren't from New York, I think because a lot of people go to New York to Christmas shopping and things, and I think sometimes because when I lived in London, I used to live in London, didn't you? And people used to come down to London for Christmas, and I think, why? Because when you're there, you kind of think, well, it's just London, To see it on the TV, it looks great. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think, we'll all kind of shift that. There are still sort of like the magical parts of New York for me now were walking through Central Park, having the saxophone player, playing a familiar song and seeing a scene out of a movie. It wasn't going into a retail store and buying things. So I think those are the moments that we'll take away as why you go to a place. And maybe that'll be better for all of us anyway. We don't need to go buy things in a store in order to feel like it's Christmas. It's more, going and doing something that's quite memorable and feels traditional and kind of romantic.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I let you go, I mean, 2020, as we said, it's been the weirdest of years, but there's been a lot to be grateful for. Can you pinpoint something that you've been grateful for this year?
Yeah, two things. I'm always grateful to be a mother. It's, the most incredible job and the most incredible feeling to have a real person just grow before you and think what a miracle that is. So I feel like, she's just turned 6, like I said, and I always sort of thought, everybody says it's such a cliche, it goes so quickly. And then here I am, and I'm like, what happened? Where'd the time go? So that's really amazing. And then the other thing I'm really grateful for is is being a songwriter, because I think if I can, be able to constantly channel everything that's going on in my own life and in the world into a song, then that gives it meaning for me. And I just, I'm always amazed at how, in all of my many more decades than I'd care to admit that I've been alive, I am still finding music as exciting, if not more so, as the day I started doing it, which was a long time ago. So I'm really grateful for that.
Perfect. Well, that's one of the things I'm grateful for as well, Nell, because I wasn't aware of your music before. I was introduced to it in 2020, so that's one thing to be grateful of. And we're gonna and to be introduced to you and to be able to interview you twice in the same year is fantastic. And I know you're coming over to the UK, hopefully early next year. So fingers crossed that still happens. And closest to us is Shrewsbury, so we'll try and come and see you in Shrewsbury.
I'd love that.
If it doesn't happen, there'll be trouble.
Oh my goodness, it was supposed to happen last year, then it's supposed to happen this year, but we'll see what happens. The music will prevail, that's all I know.
Excellent. You take care of yourself, have a lovely Christmas.
Thanks, Andy, thank you so much. Happy Christmas.
We need a Christmas more than ever now.
Isn't that absolutely stunning? We need a Christmas, and that is Nell Bryden's 2020 offering, and it is a belter. Fantastic. We Need a Christmas, available to download now at all the usual places, or you can stream it on Spotify. Check it out, it's brilliant, it's fantastic. And you can check out all of Nell's work as well. It is the album The Collection, which is the album that she came on the Stage and Screen show back in September to talk about. That is a beauty. I've got it on my iPhone, and I love it. I just love her voice is just incredible, isn't it? Nell Bryden, We Need a Christmas. And also as well, if you live in the Wrexham area, as he's saying, that she's going to be on tour in May of next year, starting in Shrewsbury at the beautiful Henry Tudor House on the 6th of May. Get some tickets to go and see Nell Bryden if you can. This is the Stage and Screen show with me, Andy Snowden, here until 3 p.m, and then Emily Southall is going to be taking over on the decks. The decks. Come on, Grandad, behave.
Come on, let's hurry, it's almost Christmas!
We wish to interrupt this program in order to bring you this special bulletin.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
This is
The Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show. It's the Andy Snowden Radio Show.
Christmas!
It's winter.